Restaurant owners. What goes into the decision to be either a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi establishment? Who gives the best free display fridges? I remember a professor saying Pepsi has a monopoly on our campus, which is why El Pollo Loco and Burger King don't serve Coke like they normally do. This is a takeaway perspective rather than a restaurant, but I know the owner of a local place well. It's a carvery with minimal dine-in facilities. Pepsi offered her a commercial fridge. The smaller one she has, 2 doors, cost $1,200 or so, although I think she got a pretty high-quality one that might be more than that free. Requirement was that she orders from Pepsi for 36 months, and that the fridge is stocked with 80% or more Pepsi products. She's allowed to sell Coke from it, but only from the other 20%. Undoubtedly Coke have similar offers, although as the market leaders they can probably charge a little more and give a little less. Maybe Coke would require 90% control of the fridge for 48 months. In practice, stores would probably do best buying the fridge outright, and stocking Coke as the only sugary cola, and Pepsi Max as the only diet one. The store I worked at was supposed to be Coca-Cola and Pepsi, but Pepsi wouldn't give free fridges and other stuff needed. The Pepsi deal fell through. Whichever vendor is offering better deals. I used to manage a cafe at a country club, and we sold both cans of Coke and Pepsi from the fountain. I think that was just because snooty rich people just couldn't have one or the other. They needed both. You're opening a restaurant and Coke comes in and offers you $X cost for their product. Pepsi comes in and offers a significantly lower cost of $Y for their product. Guess what? Your establishment now sells Pepsi. Both. When we first started the restaurant with my family, we were Coca-Cola and their service to us was very excellent, but after a few years they just won't mind you anymore. Coca-Cola's service to us was becoming terrible. They would just pass on our restaurant and not deliver us soft drinks. Then we changed to Pepsi. Same story, excellent service at first, then later on it would not be good. So we change brand every 3 or 4 years. I'm not from US, by the way. Sorry for bad grammar. Usually the price. We would have gone with Coke, but they charge more than Pepsi. Just as a side note, a few years ago I went to an Applebee's-like restaurant and noticed they had all these retro Coca-Cola ads hanging on the wall. Then came time to order drinks. I asked for a Coke. The waitress said they only had Pepsi. I looked over at the Coke wall and then back at her, confused. She said, "Yeah, I don't get it either." Pepsi usually dumps more money towards an account, X amount to redo a cafeteria, more cash up front. They both do the fridges for D amount of product thing. Coke pushes customer service more. So I've found. Yum Brands has a lifetime contract with Pepsi, according to Wikipedia. I guess something to do with when Pepsi used to own it. We're located in Georgia. We have to be Coca-Cola. Why can't restaurants have both? What happens? Does Coca-Cola send goons to bust up the place? Does Pepsi break legs? Pepsi will be served at the restaurants owned by PepsiCo, like Pizza Hut, Taco Bell and Kentucky Fried Chicken. I work at a university dining service for a Pac-12 school. We have to be an establishment of whichever drink company is sponsoring the football team. It used to be Coca-Cola, but about 3 years ago Pepsi bid to sponsor more. The sad thing is how many perfectly good reusable cups headed to landfills because the football stadium wasn't allowed to have Coke-sponsored cups anymore. Disappointed. I am located here in Wyoming and we do have a Pepsi plant, but no Coca-Cola is made here in the state. Therefore, Pepsi is the go-to here due to it being less expensive. We had Shasta cans because they provided us with the cooler. I don't own a restaurant, nor have I ever worked at one. But I did notice here in the Netherlands that if a place serves Pepsi, they also serve Heineken beer on tap. And if they serve Coca-Cola, they serve Grolsch beer on tap. At one point I just asked someone I knew who did own a place and he said it is often a package-like deal where you get the different drinks as a set rather than ordering everything individually. He also mentioned the companies that own these brands sometimes own the building, so they have to serve theirs. Which is all right, apparently, because it makes some stuff easier with bookkeeping. Not a restaurant owner but worked in vending for a long time. The local Coke distributors were pricks who thought we would never change suppliers because our biggest customer preferred Coke. Well, he retired. 2 months later when they were packing up their shit they didn't look so smug. Pepsi is much easier to work with. My dad owns a bar in the Netherlands and it is due to a couple of factors. 1. Most of the times the bar is actually owned by the brewery, and you just rent the building. Some breweries work with Pepsi, and others with Coca-Cola. 2. There is actually a significant price difference in a glass bottle of Coke versus a glass bottle of Pepsi. IDK about actual numbers, these are the two main factors I can think of. Ps. Even if the bar is owned by a brewery that only deals with Pepsi, it doesn't mean that you can't purchase Coca-Cola for retail from a third-party vendor. Having worked with a couple Coke employees I learned a couple of things. 1. If you bring a Pepsi product to work you are fired instantly. 2. If you work on the production line, you have to register your Coke product soda in with your boss if you brought it from home so they know you didn't steal it from the line. 3. Coke does not treat their employees as well as Pepsi. This is all hearsay to be honest, I just found it interesting that I have heard this from multiple different employees in different areas at Coke, and meanwhile Pepsi employees seem pretty happy. Not a restaurant owner but in my country, New Zealand, literally nowhere serves Pepsi. KFC and Pizza Hut used to serve it but then switched to Coke years ago. You can buy Pepsi at a supermarket but it's nowhere near as popular as Coke here. I've never once seen Pepsi in an actual restaurant. Just a little snippet about how much leverage Pepsi and Coke has. The McDonald's in the Mall of America has to sell Pepsi rather than Coke because the mall has a corporate sponsorship with Pepsi. Edit. Removed. Factoid. Because till it's the incorrect usage. Is it a bar or restaurant? No one says give me a Jack and Pepsi, or rum and Pepsi. I don't know about the USA, but in Australia, Coke is more popular than Pepsi, and Pepsi Max is more popular than Diet Zero Coke. I'd still kill you all to get some Diet Dr. Pepper over here though. We actually had a few Coke cans confiscated at a Knott's Berry Farm bag check some years ago, because the parent company, Cedar Fair, didn't want any sort of Coke image displayed at their Pepsi-contracted park. The bag checker explained that while the park allows small amounts of outside food, drink to be brought in, Coke products are completely verboten. Screw them both and get Fritz Cola. What? No love for Royal Crown? How much the cost per unit ends up being? Why not use both? I know places that serve both. Work at a casino. The deal went down like this. We were already Coke. We'll give you brand new vending machines, 3 per floor, 24 floors, all restaurants that we own, switch over. Gift shops, prominently displayed new fridges, signage, break room fountain machines. Can't remember the vending split but the contract is 10 years. They fix, service everything at least once a week. Not a restaurant, but I work for my county parks and rec department. The entire county has a contract with Pepsi right now, which means their logo is on all-out staff uniforms. I have a Pepsi mini fridge in my office, and we can get in serious trouble if we bring Coca-Cola products into work. Which is a problem, considering we used to have a contract with Coca-Cola, and I still have about 100 employee uniforms with Coke logos on them in storage, in case we ever switch back to Coca-Cola, or if we run short on funding and need spare uniforms. Literally. Now I don't know why we even have the contract in the first place, because I think it's wrong for a public entity to have a private company's logo on our uniforms, but we switched contracts because Pepsi was cheaper. Pretty sure that price is the final say. I live in a Pepsi town. We have a massive bottling plant and Pepsi invests a lot in the local community through sponsorship. In fact, our local college's basketball arena is Pepsi Arena. Almost every local, non-chain restaurant is Pepsi, as I'm sure Pepsi offers them a sweet deal. I know the owner of a well-known Italian restaurant where I live, and the Pepsi reps got him to switch to them by getting him tickets to the Masters every year. Depends, if you can pay in cash, Coca-Cola. If you can pay with Soviet submarines, Pepsi is the way to go. Price. Pepsi saves my boss over $2,000 a year compared our Coke. As I know, in my country there is no such thing, but many hipster cafes have Fritz Cola only. I have never ever been asked, is Coca-Cola okay? Kid. Mum, can I have some Coca-Cola, mum? We have Coca-Cola at home, Coca-Cola at home, Pepsi. Sometimes it depends on who salesman is, or isn't, a dick about it. https://www.postcrescent.com/story/entertainment/dining/2014/its-its-its-its-it-its-its-it-its-its-it-its. The contract with more benefits. And if it is a tie, Coca-Cola. Takeaway owner here. Pepsi because it's cheaper and more margin. If profit wasn't a factor, I'd go with Coke. Just tastes better. But people here come for the food and the beverage as an afterthought. This is unrelated, but I know wholesalers often use Coke as currency. They often just give away crates of Coke, as long as the buyer buys X amount of other products in their line. So if they are trying to launch a new item in shops, they will sell 200 boxes of it and give 20 boxes of Coke for free. The retailer may take a hit of the new product, but they are guaranteed to make money on the Coke. The wholesaler meets their target for the new item and gets more business as a result. Wait until you find that tiny little greasy spoon diner that only serves RC. Delivery schedule for us. Closed Mondays, and Coca-Cola wouldn't deliver any other day, so Pepsi got the business. Not an owner, but a possibly former bartender here. We use Coca-Cola, because more people think they like it, and I'm not gonna risk losing tips to the Pepsi effect. We also offer another cola from a small local company, which is organic, has a lot less sugar, and is simply better emo. Though the main reason we offer it is because one of the founders of that company is a good friend of my boss, and we get it almost for free, as long as we do a bit of advertising. We're a smallish bar in rural Austria, so we don't have a brand deal with either Pepsi or Cola, and I don't think my boss wants one either. With rum, always Coke. Just thirsty, always Pepsi. Better question. Why can't restaurants have both? All about that royal crown. I worked corporate beverage for a large restaurant group. The contracts you make with Coca-Cola or Pepsi include huge rebates for every gallon of syrup purchased. In essence, you end up paying about half of what a mom and pop restaurant pays for the same product. For every gallon of syrup, which makes 6 gallons of soda 5-to-1 mixture, purchased, Coke or Pepsi puts $X, XX in an account that covers any and all new equipment installations, and $X, XX to cover any repairs and maintenance to the existing equipment, and $X, XX to a marketing account that can be used for printing menus as long as the logos appear, and $X, XX for a basic rebate. At the end of the year, our Coke contract paid all remaining balances in full to the company. The Pepsi contract we had for a different set of restaurants in the company would only pay the rebate, but at the end date of the contract, the full balances of those accounts would go to the company. All those $X, XX figures are negotiable. And when you hit certain milestones on the contract, like 100,000 gallons and 250,000 gallons, those $X, XX would increase. I remember talking with a Chinese restaurant owner and asked them why they don't sell Coke. She said that Pepsi gave them both beverage refrigerators and even provided some decorations for the place. But they regretted it later, as most customers they served asked for Coke, so they spend all day every day saying, "Is Pepsi okay?" I'm more interested in the places that go with RC products. Laughs in Dr. Pepper. My dad has a small bar. The Coke reps for where he has sucked donkey balls. Coke is about 20% more expensive than Pepsi and take their sweet time when you order something off schedule, so it's easy to be out of something for a while. Pepsi, if you run out of something off or your normal delivery day, our rep brings it by himself so we can have it. It costs extra, but when the choice is zero or it being expensive, well, take it being expensive. Coke rep refused to do that, and there's almost no other way for us to get syrup otherwise. If either we flub up, or there's just a weird day where everyone and their mother wants something we don't sell a ton of, and therefore don't stock enough of. For us, being out of something like Sprite for 4 days is just not doable, We have this happen with Sierra Mist and Diet Dr. Pepper every now and then, so Pepsi it is for us. I ran a gym. For Pepsi vending machines, they give us the machines for free. We just have to maintain a minimum order and can only stock with Pepsi. They also threw in a cooler and a branded scoreboard for the basketball court. We could put anything in the coolers, but in order to maintain our minimum with Pepsi, it didn't make sense to put too much competing shit in there. Keep in mind Gatorade and Aquafina are Pepsi. We ended up putting in some protein shakes, Red Bull, and protein bars in the cooler. In our lunch. Guy from Coke came in and said we will give you a fridge if you stock Coke. So now I stock Coke and the fridge is filled with Coke brands, i.e. Monster. But cannot stock foreign Coke products in it. You find a rep from each company and have them battle to the death. Then just go with craft sodas since they are better anyway. We sign exclusivity agreements, usually for about 5 years at a time. Every time a contract is up, the opposing soft drink company comes in guns blazing with great pricing to try and win back the business. The primary driver is price on Bib fountain syrup because that's our main profit vehicle. We also get a rebate on cases of bottles water that is pretty significant, as well as a promotional budget for umbrellas, signage, special events. We always look at the deal as a whole based on sales projections. We won't switch for pennies, but usually the other guys come in with a deal that too good to turn down, and then 5 years later get complacent or have their budgets tightened and the new other guys are hungry enough to slide on in. This is all handled and negotiated by regional managers. Not a restaurant owner, but held an executive student body position at my university. Coke gave us the most free shit when we first became a university apparently. Bar operator here. I will never use Coca-Cola again, if I can help it. Besides being significantly cheaper, Pepsi has outstanding customer service and unlimited service calls. I bought a bar restaurant a few years ago. When I bought the place, it was a Pepsi establishment. I wanted to change it, because who orders a Pepsi? For whatever reason, I don't actually have a Pepsi or Coke rep that I speak to. I have a Cisco rep who talks to Pepsi Coke for me. Also, the Guns and Well ice bins belong to Pepsi. So a switchover is not as simple as just changing out the syrup bag. Pepsi would have had to come get their equipment, and Coke would have to come in to put in new stuff. So if I could get them to come in on the same day, the bar is shut down for a day. The Coke reps suck. They were slow responding, and by the time they gave me a date, it was during peak season. So I decided to stay with Pepsi. When people order a Jack and Coke, they get Jack and Pepsi. I've never gotten a single complaint or comment about it. Thanks for watching. See you later.